Hello everyone. It's been a while since I've done one of these videos. My name is Genevieve Akel. I'm a Gnostic, Sufi, Buddhist, any name you want to give to the undercurrent of mystics who have always existed and exist outside of all religious institution and paradigms and separationist thinking. I have a deep connection to our Holy Mother, Sophia, in Gnosticism, or Green Tara in Tibetan Buddhism, and she lets me know where she's going with the collective consciousness, and I use story form to communicate that. If you hear some explosions in the distance, that's still some fireworks going off from Diwali last night. I'm up in a little hill station called Nadi, a village in Dharamshala, Himachal Pradesh, so it's kind of echoing up from the valley below, which is kind of good because right now we're entering our second Act Climax, which is shots fired, man, just shots fired. Where to even begin? Okay, so in my last video, we were entering our second act and going on the journey, not fully aware of what inner wound we will have to release in order to achieve our goal. That's the nature of the second act, right? We go on it because we feel we need to and we know this is good for us, but as we walk through it and the hero or heroine's journey, this wound starts to become quite prevalent, and it's the thing getting in the way of the goal. And we usually, some of us probably went through a midpoint. Now the midpoint in the story is the middle of a film. It's the second lowest moment for the character. It's a really dark moment, and it turns the character to really go, oh, I'm starting to kind of really see this wound. And I can't turn my head from it as easily as I could before. It's a low moment, and it's something that would have happened in your life. I think a lot of it would have, for most of us, is around relationships. So October was a very intense Libra season. There was a lot going on with Libra. Mercury was retrograde, Mars was in there. And so it was really challenging our relationships with ourselves and our relationships with other people and connections. Getting down to the nitty-gritty. So it's almost like a pattern that I was in, or you might have been in terms of connection, either with the self or with others, might have played out your whole life. It was like it was a record that had just spun around the same song forever and ever. And it probably brought discomfort and no peace, but it wasn't fully, we were more comfortable with having that attachment than the idea of maybe not having it anymore. So a midpoint probably happened in your life, as it did for me, where a situation arose in life, in a connection, be it with the self or with others, where this came to the fore. And it was this realization of, I can't go through this cycle anymore, this loop, relationally, because it's undercutting my peace, it's undercutting my worth, it's undercutting actually the things I truly value. I was staying here for some weird reason of attachment or a devaluing I had in myself, some false idea or false wounded place I was living from, but now I don't want to live from there anymore. But it's really hard to cut that. Now we're in sort of Scorpio season now, so I feel like Libra season packed all the punches and Scorpio's here for the knockout. Scorpio is always this very deep this death, this rebirth, this like, okay, we've had enough time kind of considering this, in and out of it, not fully aware of it, but Scorpio has pulled the face and we see it. And I see it in myself, exactly what it is. And I know exactly what I have to do. And for me, I'll give you some personal story here. It makes it more juicy. And also God is in the details, along with the devil, which are basically two constructs within the human psyche. Okay. You know, in a recent video, I was speaking about, it was a few months ago, holding out for my twin flame, right? This divine counterpart. And since I was a little girl, I always wanted that, like, beautiful companion in love. And it really was something, that idea of it. I had this awakening in 2019, and the idea of this divine counterpart really did help me continue on the journey, because I had let go of so many attachments. And the path to further enlightenment, expansion, peace is always releasing attachments. Every beautiful master teaches this in one way or another. It's always that. He who loses his life will find it, right? That's what Jesus says. So everything that I desire for myself, my control, my desires of this world, what I want, that is an illusion, right? And it's okay to live a life like that, so be it. But I certainly entered a path of trying to let go of anything that was an obfuscation, like looking through a warped bell jar, kind of giving me a sense of security. So I let go of all my addictions. I let go of an unhealthy marriage, unhealthy friendships, and many people might still be in that process or doing that with actual people in life. I let go of so many things, but I was holding on to the idea that one day this relationship would come. And it's not like I thought about it every day, but it was a tether or an anchor to feel secure. And what I've experienced in my dissolution that I've gone through in the past 2 months, a very intense dissolution of self. I was writing a lot about this process. I'd, in a very mystical way, met a Sufi master. It's a long story, and I wrote about it. So maybe one day I'll publish this book. But I got given a mantra for 40 days, right? It's always 40 days. Jesus in the desert for 40 days, 40-day mantra. Anyway, I committed myself to this, and over the 40 days, I felt this thing, my particular issue, like an apple bobbing up to the surface of the water. Like I'd kept this one apple underfoot. Look, I've let go of all these attachments. Look how spiritual I am. But this one apple I kept under my foot, because I was like, I can't let this one go. Because then I don't know who I am. Because the more we let go of attachments to, be it people, ideas of who we are in this life, ideas of what work we do in this life, ideas of even religion, just every way in which we identify ourselves, it makes us feel secure. But it's still an illusion. There is no I, right? It's what Tibetan Buddhists teach. You can't find it. And I'd let go of so many I's, and I thought, like, okay, I'm doing so well, I don't have to let go of this I. Because then I feel like I would be floating in the nothing, in the emptiness, in the, Ubaba Kreda Mutwa, so many beautiful mystics and shamans write about this. And I was writing about it, and then I came across some work from Beguines, who are female Christian mystics. There's none of them left anymore. A lot of them were burnt at the stake by the Roman Empire and the Catholic Church. Margaret Perret, for example, in the 1300s, she wrote about the 7 fountains. And I was starting to feel it was like letting go of this thing made me feel afraid, because then I don't know what tether I would have from myself to reality. I was like, if I cut this one, then I genuinely don't have anything. I don't have anything to hold on to. I'm just floating in the emptiness. And that scares the bejesus out of me. I think that the reality of this existence, the emptiness, the nothing, it's so, Ubaba Kredamutra wrote, it's so utterly nothing in its nothingness, that when we face and we sit in the true nature of this reality, that it is empty. And that can be excruciatingly frightening. It is frightening. For me, it was very frightening. And I remember tasting this at this time last year. I had a deep experience of the emptiness of it. And I couldn't sit in it comfortably. So I fell back into old patterns, and I definitely held on to this apple under my foot. I was like, no, this is still coming. This is still coming. There is some anchor in this world. There's something. Because I didn't want to be floating out there, you know. I think it's so, in this day and age especially, you know, before maybe previous generations with less technology and the distractive elements of media and social media, we are in a hyper distracted age where we are so disconnected from our bodies and our experience of nothing, that it's excruciating to be here in this normal, chilled, nothing moment. So we start to fill it with things. I always had, you know, when I was addicted to substances, I always had that ahead of me. I've got a cigarette coming. I have this compulsion, it's coming. I am filling it up with work and my desire for my own life, so that's coming. I'm filling it up with all these somethings. I'm filling up my life with somethings because it's too frightening to sit and go, the nature of reality is that I am constructing all of those somethings, and it is an exquisitely eternal, loving emptiness. And can I just be here in that emptiness and feel sustained and what's the word, like when you farm, like cultivate peace in it. Because when you first come into the emptiness, it's very difficult to stay here because we've been so conditioned to jump out. It was so, for me, the past 2 months have been excruciating to come into this space and to let go of this last thing, this fantasy I had in my head of my twin flame is coming. There is a love in a man, a physical man, and that's ahead. I didn't have to think about it every day, but I had it ahead of me, so it made me feel safe now. So letting that go, I think I did. I went through the alchemical marriage in the past 2 months because that was the last big desire for me that was in the way of me marrying myself. And if you see an alchemy, you know, that's the sort of hidden language of the mystical path in the West. You have the sun and the moon. And it's depicted often as you see the lovers in tarot, and people like myself were like, oh, that's two physical human beings. Those are two separate beings. And when I am in a place of readiness, the other physical being will come in, and that's the great love I was waiting for, right? But it's actually symbolically coded, and I think I always knew this. I should have known this because I love symbols, and this is obviously where my story was going. Maybe others saw this, but I couldn't see it for myself because it was my own wound. But the alchemical marriage is not with another person, it's with the self. So if you Google and you look at something like the rebis, R-E-B-I-S, it's one body, and it breaks into a female and male head, sun and moon. And I basically went through this death, and I'm still in the process of accepting it, that I am fully sustained and in love with the beloved Creator. I am my lover. I am my twin flame. And I'm not even just saying that just to, sometimes the ego will make tricks and be like, yeah, we can say that. And because once we say it, then the twin flame will come. I don't think there is a twin flame, to be honest. And I am now fully preparing myself to take the Bodhisattva vow, becoming a nun. It's the only word I can really use, nun, to make sense to anybody watching, because but a nun was very much within the institution of the Catholic Church, because the Beguines and the real Christian mystics, they were all executed by the Catholics. So my people are gone. Yeah, my lineage, I love India because, aside from a lot of Muslim prejudice that does go on, I'm not going to deny that, India does preserve sacred, holy lineages, be that in the yogic sadhu tradition or the Bodhisattva Buddhist tradition. There's a place that a practitioner can go to, a mystic, to take vows and receive the blessing of the lineage. Sorry, I didn't. But my lineage was annihilated and has been hunted down over centuries. The Gnostics, this is just what we call them now, historians and academics. Gnostics never called themselves Gnostics. They called themselves Telestai. And there were many different ways of them expressing themselves and communities, the Sethians, the Valentinians, later the Cathars, and all the work written by them was indexed and taken by the Catholic Church, and they were murdered. So I don't have a lineage to go to take my vows, Even though we use different language in the sort of Christian mystic tradition, but it's very much the same as a bodhisattva in Tibetan Buddhism. It's the same thing. All of these practices are doing the same thing, but just using different symbols and different language and different cultural things to explain it, right? So the Bodhisattva vow is the closest and the vow. And I believe it's the vow that Jesus took because he was in India in his missing years in the Bible. You can read about this. Many historians agree to this. There's more evidence of him in India than him in Palestine. And he picks up in the history of Himi's monastery, a Buddhist monastery. And a lot of his parables and his teachings are verbatim what the Buddha taught as well. And the Bodhisattva vow is to dedicate my life to fully pursuing the path of Buddhahood out of compassion and love for all sentient beings. That if I do this in this life, the best I can, it assists in the enlightenment and evolution of all. And I they say once bodhicitta is generated, compassion for all beings, that often one will find themselves ready to do this, take the Bodhisattva path. And definitely when I had my awakening in 2019, the star came out of the sky. I've told the story a few times about 2 stars coming down from the heavens, and it activated something in me that I haven't stopped. It's almost like, it's not because I'm amazing, it's because this moment of grace happened to me and changed me entirely, and is opening that path for me. I wouldn't know I wouldn't want to walk any other way since that moment, and since various things have happened since then, So it's led me here. And yeah, it's just weird to say that out loud. I think I've always known, like, I've been relentlessly pursuing this and I don't want to stop. But I haven't ever fully admitted or accepted that means I will be chaste, monastic, that apple under my foot has been, I've let that go. And that was incredibly difficult to do. All of us have had this apple underfoot, this one thing, this thing that makes us feel safe, tethered, secure in some kind of distraction or thing to hold on to, because looking at the ultimate nature of reality is frightening. And that thing is bobbed up, and it wants to, and is being released in our lives. And that can be very difficult right now, because it's like a whole new identity. It's always been there. Like, for me, this has always been there, but not fully like this. And this level of commitment where I'm going, okay, I have to commit to this. I'm scared. I'm not going to lie. Because the experience of being in emptiness is, there are moments of beauty, but it's incredibly difficult as well to let go of samsara. Increasingly, samsara being all these illusions, right? These attachments we have, these stories we make up, these somethings, these tethers, these anchors. Letting each one of those go is difficult, but it brings so much more peace. So there might be a connection in your life or a full identity shift for you happening right now. And I definitely think that's what she's doing. We've all come to an end of a big karmic runaround. And it's like we ran and ran and ran. It got tighter and tighter and tighter until it went poof. And it's like we all we're at the end of something in that way. And we are re-identifying, and we know that new identity is exactly what is good for us. Like me and this Bodhisattva Beguine Christian mystic path, the nun path. But it's something we've never done before, and it's scary. And we don't know what lies beyond. But we know we can trust it because it's good for us. We know when something's good, when it's opened in the right way, and when we have to shed something, an old pattern, an old security, an old person, an old situation, an old connection it's given us a sense of security. And we've actually got really used to it. We've forgotten that there is a sweetness outside of this, or how sweet and what life tasted like before this. I remember that when I was in my quite long relationship and marriage, we were very toxic for each other. But I had forgotten that there was any reality outside of this weird process until I let it go. And it was very difficult when I let it go, because you let go of something you've attached so strongly to, and because you've got to that point, you have to, but it's really hard, and you do it. And just staying there and staying in the course and staying committed to that choice, because you can't go back. Within a few months, it breaks, it opens up, and we start to feel the peace and the security in a more healthy, unattached way, feeling peace and security in the emptiness of this. I took something out of the bucket. I've emptied myself more by taking a situation, a connection, an attachment out. Now I must face that empty space without that thing there. I used to avoid that empty space by going to that thing, but now I don't go there. So now I must sit with this emptiness, and being with it and finding stability and peace in it takes a couple of months. And then we start to discover a peace and a really like a beauty in it, like a cleanness in it, you know. So for me, it was letting go of that deep psychological expectation and fantasy. I can't hold that ahead of me anymore. There is nothing ahead of me now. It's weird to exist in this much emptiness. But I am finding more and more peace, and I know eventual bliss will come from the practice. I remember on, let me just start a new one quick. I remember on October 20th, it was the full moon, and this whole thing, this worm, it felt a bit like a worm in my belly, like a tapeworm, you know. It was burning out, and I was asleep or trying to sleep through the night. I couldn't sleep, and my body went into involuntary trauma release because of this psychic attachment, this idea that was fully coming out of me. This is Beto. I'm babysitting him while his dad's in Nepal. Hey, Beto. He's my adventure buddy. We go hiking together. Petito. So my body went into this full trauma release. It was quite extreme. I mean, if there was a priest in the room, a Catholic priest, they probably would have started exorcising me. And I was there as this observer, this parent, and I was holding my body. And this little inner child in me was so afraid of letting go of this idea, this fantasy of this coming thing, that she didn't know how to cope. She was freaking out, this little girl in me, and I was holding her, just crying as her and with her, almost observing this part of me. I'm going like, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay, we can let this go. It's just a story. It's just a story. It's a story that somebody else made up. It's a story, but it's not true. Since, for girls, you know, and boys maybe, since you're young, it's like, who will be the one you marry? Who will be the guy? Who you aren't complete until you have that other person, and they are your protector and they make you safe. And this whole, you know, romantic films and just every part of culture and life and our upbringing is steeped in this fantasy, right? And she had become so accustomed to it and so believing of it and so needing of it that she was afraid to let it go, because she was like, then what will happen? What will we be? We won't, who will we be without this? And I'm like, exactly, we will be empty. This is an aspect of samsara. It's an aspect of the illusion we're in. It's a story. And I don't want to hold on to the story anymore, because it's something ahead of me and it's getting in the way of me existing in this emptiness now and accepting the emptiness here and finding peace. Because whenever there's something ahead, or there's a tether or an attachment, or I've got to do this, or this is where I put all my energy, it's because we cannot accept this right now as emptiness, and that's pure. Anyway, so she had a lot of crying to do. And there's still moments where I like have a little cry about it, because I'm slowly accepting that this is the path for me. you know. So it's all, of course, like I think we're all letting go of a major karmic identification, be that reflected with just the self, like me, or reflected in a connection or multiple connections. You know, when you let go of connections that have defined you and your existence and your identity, when you let that go, it's because you know you have to. It's really brave and good, but of course there's a grieving process there, and there's a slow, gentle way to accept that, because we are grieving an old identity, and we are grieving, there's this little part, this little child in us that attached to those weird connections that weren't good for us because of a trauma bond, because of unhealthy conditioning, and it made them feel like the inner child, the wounded child felt that this was the only way to feel safe in a world that's incredibly unsafe feeling sometimes, you know. So it's totally normal to grieve and cry and process, but I definitely feel that we're all there at our second act climax. The death at the second act climax is the darkest before the dawn. There's a difficulty in it, because, and it comes in conjunction with the crisis, so the revelation that we're all having about ourselves. So I had this revelation about myself, but it was also really difficult to have that revelation because of all these reasons I've explained, right? You get so used to this thing. So yeah, that's where I feel we're at. Peto potato. Animals make it so much easier. So I'm just preparing to take my Bodhisattva vow. You know, the emptiness I'm tasting now was already so challenging. The Dharma is really, I'm paraphrasing from a text I was reading, and this Tibetan Buddhist text, they say it's really sweet and bitter, you know, and it is. It's like I'm feeling very challenged by this new level of emptiness I'm having to embrace and accept, and then knowing that I'm about to take a vow that commits to the path of the fullness of emptiness. Like, but just this little bit tastes really tough right now. It's quite a difficult tonic to swallow, and I know that I'm about to commit to, not that I was always on this path, but fully bringing it into consciousness, and even speaking it in this video today. It was important to say it. You know, I've said it to some friends in voice notes and family members, like, this is where I'm going. But just to say this publicly as well is really important for me, because I'm committing it to reality. In this reality, like I'm going to walk the path of Buddhahood. And I know that that's going to mean a lot more grappling with these tethers, these somethings that the mind must try and have, but are illusions, you know. But I'm committed. It's the way I was made. So anyway. Okay. I hope everyone's doing okay in their death. I know we all are. And I think it really does feel like a whole new world beyond now. I felt like there was a full new story happening this year, like a new story of our own lives, a new story of this world. Like the world is having the whole earth, her consciousness is having a full karmic death. It's like over. And the truth of who we are, what was hidden, what we could never get to because of these karmic loops, is finally opening, right? And that's scary, because it's like, I'm going through, I mean, how exciting, a path of deep magic and mystery, my bee, I love it, I love this. I get to walk this Bodhisattva path, what? It's, that door is open to me now, because I let go of a weird, deep karmic thing, you know? And we all get to do that now in some way in our lives. We get to walk through a full new door So yeah, good luck. I'm very hungry. I haven't had anything but tea today. So I think I'm going to go eat an aloo paratha. It's my favorite thing. One of my favorite things. Yeah. Okay. I'll give you the sign of the Bodhisattva. Sending you peace.